Remember that vintage stall in the back streets of Yongno-gu?
Oh, that place was a treasure trove.
Exactly. We promised our listeners we'd take them on a journey through Seoul's vibrant local markets, and that's exactly where I want to kick things off today.
You mean the stall with the plethora of antique photo albums, each carrying a unique story from Seoul's past?
Yes, the very same. I remember leafing through a family album, the black and white photographs revealing so much about a time I'd never personally experienced. How about you, Andrew?
Well, a set of intricate handicrafts caught my eye. They were almost like a window into Seoul's rich culture, especially the importance of family and tradition.
It's amazing, isn't it? How every piece we found in that vintage stall had so much to say beyond their age and shape.
Absolutely, Chloe. Whether a single photo capturing a moment lost in time, or a carefully crafted object speaking to traditions passed down through generations, each holds the power to tell a bigger story.
And that's exactly the type of exploration we have on today's agenda, everyone. We look forward to uncovering the stories behind all those hidden gems in the bustling markets we'll be visiting.
That's right, Chloe. Our journey through Seoul's markets is but the first stop on our itinerary. Stay tuned, dear listeners. There's much more to come.
This bustling market, Andrew, it's a microcosm of Seoul itself. Vibrant, captivating, laden with stories. There's something about the energy, the colors, the sounds. It's magnetic, isn't it?
Each stall, each vendor is a slice of the city's soul. It feels like an art gallery exhibiting the city's history and character in the most exquisite way.
And let's not forget the vendors. Like the sweet elderly woman at the vegetable stall, remember her? She took the time to explain the significance each vegetable played in her family's traditional meals, inspiring us to think about how our daily lives are intertwined with these economic hubs.
Absolutely, Chloe. Every smile, every kind explanation adds a depth of connection that's unique to these markets. It goes beyond a transaction. It's a genuine expression of the community's tapestry.
One can truly discover so much from these local markets on about Seoul's way of life, its culture. Like the traditional pots used for kimchi fermentation, I was amused to see them still sold in the market. It's tradition, living and breathing.
Spot on, Chloe, or the antique shops with relics from the city's history. I can feel the narrative of Seoul, its past, present, and hints at the future, actively playing out in these markets.
Every interaction here tells a bigger story. It's not just shopping. We're engaging with Seoul's narrative in the most organic way, one stall at a time.
I agree, Chloe. And as we unveil more of these markets, I can't help but feel a sense of awe for the history, the community, and the stories that thrive within this urban labyrinth.
Andrew, remember the spice markets in Marrakesh? The air heavy with the smell of exotic spices, the warmth of the Moroccan sun. It was enchanting, wasn't it?
Yes, the vibrant colors, the bustling crowd, and the vendors. Each of them had such intriguing stories to tell.
And these markets in Seoul, they have a different vibe. The energy, the feeling, it's hard to describe. It's like a different universe within the city.
That's spot on, Chloe. The markets of Seoul are unique within themselves, each one different from the next. You could call it an urban jungle.
I don't know if this happens everywhere, but here it's like every object in the market is a piece of Seoul's history. It's so immersive.
The antique stalls, the traditional food vendors, it's like stepping back in time. And yet there's this undeniable presence of the new, the modern, the progressive.
That contrast, Andrew, how does Seoul manage to balance it so beautifully? Everything, right from the architecture to the products being sold here, it's a fusion of the old and the new.
Our visits to other cities' markets, the hustle, the unique textures, the narratives, they're all different. But these markets in Seoul, they've got this charm, an aura that's just Seoul.
You know, Andrew, I've always had a special affinity for local food, and Seoul has this gastronomical wonder to offer.
Oh, I'm sure you have loads to say about what you've tasted.
Indeed. I got to taste tteokbokki, a popular spicy rice cake dish from a local street vendor. It's a balance of different flavors. The core of it is the gooey rice cake with a pleasant chewiness, coated in this spicy, slightly sweet red chili sauce, garnished with sesame seeds and green onions.
The way you describe it, it's like an experience junior to none.
Exactly. It's the sort of experience that encapsulates Seoul, the simplicity yet the complexity of it. Then there's bibimbap, a colorful bowl full of nutritious goodness.
As an artist, I've noticed that Korean food isn't just about flavors, but it paints quite a picture as well.
What was fun is that while trying bibimbap, I got into a great conversation with a food vendor about it. It was hilarious and insightful. This particular vendor had named each ingredient based on what emotion they symbolize. Apparently, the egg yolk in bibimbap represents the joyful sun.
Makes you think how food isn't just about survival, but it's also about stirring emotions and creating culture.
It's incredible how food unites people here, creates dialogue, and forms bonds in Seoul. I feel like I understand the city a little more after these culinary delights.
Chloe, while you were gobbling down tteokbokki and discovering the joys of bibimbap, it got me wondering, what's the secret ingredient in Korean food?
Instantly, I'm reminded of jang, a variety of fermented sauces that make a steady appearance in almost all dishes. You've got doenjang, or soybean paste, served with everything from vegetables to seafood. Then comes the gochujang, or red chili paste, an omnipresent additive in the spicy gourmet options. Finally, there's ganjang, the Korean soy sauce, lighter and saltier in comparison to its Chinese counterpart.
That's quite a combination. No wonder Korean soups and broths have such a rich, deep flavor.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, have you tried the kimchi jjigae, Andrew? It's a hot and spicy stew made primarily with kimchi, Korea's most emblematic side dish, and the depth of flavors it offers is truly one of a kind.
Oh, don't remind me. That tangy, pickled taste of kimchi is something that will stay with me for a long time. It's quite addictive, isn't it? It has shown me a completely different category of applied fermentation and pickles.
And did you realize the predominance of seafood in Korean cuisine? I mean, it's not surprising considering the country's vast coastal line. Their seafood pancake, haemulpajeon, and mixed seafood grilled right in front of you are a couple of delights that come to mind.
Your point on seafood reminds me of something. I have heard that South Korea actually consumes the most amount of seaweed per capita worldwide, including that light, toasted nori served alongside dishes. Is it true?
Funny you ask, it's completely true. Koreans love their seaweed, or jim as they call it. It is included in cleansing soups, salads, even in snacks rolled with rice. It's genuinely considered a symbol of longevity and good health here in South Korea.
The more I learn about Korean food, the more I realize it's not just about sustenance, but a celebration of life and health. The usage of medicinal ingredients, the diversity, it all converges into a unique culinary tradition.
I couldn't agree more. From healthy, well-balanced meals to indulgent street food, Korean cuisine offers us an assortment of food experiences that are both satisfying and incredibly wholesome. Now, as we stroll through these lively streets, Andrew, the next part of our journey involves a rather colorfully subversive section of the city. Have you ever really dug into the meanings hidden within the unseen strokes of street art?
To be honest, Chloe, I've always appreciated street arts globally for their rawness, but never really delved into Korean street art specifically. The color, energy, and often strong political messages that carry through these artworks can be quite powerful, though. You've been living in Seoul for a while now, going about your dance sessions and all. Have you had the chance to understand these diverse expressions?
I will admit it's challenging to comprehend unless you are familiar with the local zeitgeist. However, a few younger friends did enlighten me about this form of public sentiment. I learned that these creatives voice their powerful messages against political pressures, societal restrictions, and even economic challenges of the youth. One mural I recall vividly. There was an encrypted message of pleas for freedom and mobility in society. An open book as a mute testament to suppressed voices.
I must say, these artists certainly are ingenious with their expressions. Your description of that mural sounds profound. Don't you think it's stunning how they encapsulate such strong sentiments within vibrant colors and seemingly simple designs?
Oh, absolutely. These murals, these street arts, become a collective memory of the unvoiced protests or the unfulfilled dreams marking a timeline, a shared history of struggle and victories of that era. Yet they add so much color and life to these streets. It's almost beautiful how they merge the passion, the pain, the protests, and the pleasures all together into a public canvas.
Such potent emotions and thoughts, supposedly hidden, yet openly visible for anyone who truly wished to see and understand. Street art reflects the pulse of a city, and I'm eager to further explore into these unseen, unheard narratives of Seoul. Think about this, Chloe. We made street art, a first for us both.
Absolutely, what an amazing memory. With our own hands, we added more colors to this lively city.
Wasn't it a surreal experience? For a moment there, I felt like we were translating these very streets into our own message. To call that liberating would be an understatement.
And the specific image we picked, Andrew, a lotus in full bloom. It's a symbol of resurrection and hope in many Asian cultures. I think it represents our aspirations to connect with the world. Don't you agree?
Spot on, Chloe. Every flicker of paint was us reaching out to the city, adding to its ever-evolving spirit.
Which brings us to another fascinating aspect of Seoul's street art scene. Unlike other global cities where street art is usually attributed to rebellion and protest, in Seoul, it's a communication medium that reflects crossovers from popular culture like K-drama and K-pop. Isn't that a unique twist?
Certainly, it offers a whole new perspective. You wouldn't usually associate rebellion and K-pop, but here they coexist through the canvases of the city, fostering a lively and intriguing street art culture.
And no matter where you go, east or west, new age neighborhoods or traditional villages, Seoul's street art trails will always surprise you with an unexpected artwork around the corner, narrating its unsaid stories.
Yeah, from my observation, each neighborhood manages to maintain its own artistic identity. It's an intersection between a microcosm and a panorama. I have to admit, this city's street art is a sensory and intellectual overload, in the best possible way, of course.
Oh, definitely. It does seem like a never-ending exploration, doesn't it?
Absolutely, Chloe. But let's not leave our listeners hanging now, shall we? A maze of hidden alleys or a vibrant pop culture, what shall we explore next?
I don't think you can fully understand a culture without diving into its religious aspects. Do you, Andrew?
You have a point, Chloe. Religion often shapes values, traditions, and even the architecture of a place.
Exactly. In the case of Seoul, many people here follow Buddhism or Christianity. And it's fascinating to see the coexistence of beautiful traditional temples and modern churches all over the city.
That mix is really visually striking. The bright colors and curved roofs of Buddhist temples contrast with the sleek lines of the Christian churches.
It is. And what's even more startling is how they've managed to maintain a peaceful coexistence, unlike some other societies where religious conflicts are more prevalent. Seoul really is a city of contrasts and harmonies, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I believe religion marks an essential part of the city's soul, even though not all residents are religious. You see that in the meticulous construction of these establishments and the dedicated rituals that are performed.
And each neighborhood, each temple or church offers a different experience. For example, something I discovered during my K-pop training days here in Seoul was Bonggunsa Temple, located right in the center of the bustling city. But once you enter, it's as if all the city noise vanishes and the air feels different. Peaceful, it's almost surreal.
That's a world within a world. And how does that feel to someone who leans towards Catholicism?
I think it brought me closer to understanding the city, its tradition, and its vibe. I felt connected, on a different level, of course, but surely one that enabled me to appreciate the beauty of coexistence.
I agree. Seoul's religious establishments symbolize more than just architecture or customs. They represent the soul of Seoul, reflecting its capacity to embrace diverse faiths and beliefs in peaceful harmony. These religious establishments, they are more than just places for worship.
That's what I felt too while visiting. They somehow anchor the city.
Exactly. They influence not just the spiritual, but also daily lives. For instance, Buddhist temples often double up as cultural centers. They host activities like tea ceremonies, Zen meditation sessions, even temple stays for tourists and locals that expose people to Buddhist teachings. It's a way to understand the mindset and philosophy of the Korean people.
That's eye-opening. But do Christian churches function similarly?
In some ways, they do. Christian churches in Seoul also play significant roles in community building. They organize outreach programs, charity drives, and social events, thus fostering a sense of communality and shared responsibility. It wouldn't be off the mark to say that they form an integral part of the social fabric of Seoul.
So these establishments, in a way, facilitate social cohesion, right?
Definitely. They serve as gathering places, fostering interaction, participation, and belonging. There's more to these venues than their roles in rituals and ceremonies. They embody how faith and community intersect in shaping Seoul's cultural identity and help people connect on a much deeper level.
So, for someone new to Seoul, visiting these places could be a gateway to understanding the city and its people, right?
No doubt. Visit a temple, sit in on a church service, take a stroll around church grounds or temple compounds. It is quite an insightful experience. All these experiences take you closer to the heart and soul of Seoul.
Andrew, there's a vivid play of tradition and modernity in Seoul.
How so?
Well, for one, the juxtaposition of grand centuries-old palaces and towering glass skyscrapers is immediately striking. They coexist in harmony, telling stories of how Seoul has embraced the future without letting go of its history.
That silhouette is something. And isn't it the same in the city's lifestyle?
Exactly. People here, they cherish and uphold traditional practices, have immense respect for their elders, they're rooted, but at the same time, they're forward-looking. You see cutting-edge fashion trends, gleaming technology, and an enviable pop culture that has spread its wings globally. Seoul strikes this beautiful balance.
And you, having both Korean and French heritage, how has that duality played out for you?
I've experienced both worlds in their full hues. It's been fascinating. Like, my French side enjoys the intellectual discussion, the art, the wine. But then my Korean side loves the hustle, the discipline, the unity. Somehow, I find myself straddling between the two, borrowing elements from each to shape my identity. I've learned that every culture is a melody in its own right, and what we become is a symphony of all those influences that touch upon our lives.
Beautiful analogy. But does that not lead to cultural clashes sometimes?
Honestly, yes. It's not always seamless. There are contradictions, conflicts. But isn't that what makes it enriching? It's these very contrasts that challenge our perspectives and bring about growth. And that's the story of Seoul, too. Andrew, it's interesting to see how Seoul is taking on globalization, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's this mix of heritage and modernity that's captivating.
It's evident everywhere. The infrastructure, businesses. You can find a high-end coffee shop next to a centuries-old temple, tailored hanbok studios posing amongst contemporary retail stores.
And the people here are able to confidently cherish their traditional roots while opening up to global cultures. I mean, who would have thought you can enjoy French croissants in a traditional hanok cafe here in Seoul?
Exactly. And to me, globalization has played not only an economic role, but also an influential cultural one here. What's intriguing is how Koreans are leveraging this to promote their own culture, like K-pop.
Speaking of K-pop, that's a perfect example of how the Korean music industry has efficiently used globalization. They've adapted Western pop music and suffused it uniquely with Korean style, making it a global phenomenon.
There's a power in this cultural exchange, isn't there? It's sculpting a new cultural identity for Seoul, one that resounds with its past and sparkles with its present.
Yet, at the same time, there's also a portrayal of global pop culture that's uniquely Korean. Through media, films, and even the food scene, there's a distinctive character, a fuel of creativity that globalizes yet retains the Korean essence.
Living in Seoul, this fusion is such an enriching experience. You get a taste of the world within the confines of this city, only subtly marked by Korean fingerprints.
Indeed, Chloe. While embracing globalization, Seoul hasn't lost its soul.
Trends, fashion, and vibes. This is what I love about youth spaces. They are like the pulse points of the city, don't you think?
You're right, Chloe. They're a window into what the city is becoming, what's in fashion, what's out. They forecast the future in some ways.
And Seoul has so many youthful hotspots. Areas where the mix of tradition and modernity is beautifully balanced. Andrew, remember that hidden rooftop bar we discovered in Hongdae?
Yes, what an immersive experience. Up on the high vantage point looking over the bustling city, listening to the excited chatter of young people, it gives you a kind of exhilarating thrill.
Yes, and do you remember the bunch of locals we met there who were sporting some fierce fashion statements? Even as a K-pop trainee, I was wonderfully surprised. Their fashion wasn't just eccentric, but a blend of traditional and modern aesthetics. It was true cultural fusion.
Yes. The interesting part is, they told us tales of how these styles embodied the emotions, the anger, the joy, and the spirit of the local youth. There was an entire narrative embedded in it.
And their stories are not just about themselves, but about Seoul, about its vibes, its evolution. It's like, as they fashion their stories, they are also fashioning the identity of this city.
And oh, how can we not mention the lively night market in Sinchon? Remember the array of food stalls, boutiques, and street performers? It was a sensory overload, but that's the charm of these places.
I know, and the night out there, music, dance, fashion, food, it was a feast. A powerful reflection of Seoul's youthful zeal and how it's deeply intertwined with K-pop. You could feel the energy in the air.
Absolutely. And what caught my attention in particular were these sticker photos booths everywhere, a popular trend among locals. Each sticker, a story, a memory, frozen in the hustle and bustle of Seoul's nightlife.
Those were some notable moments indeed. In essence, Seoul's youth hangouts are not just places where fashion trends originate, they are spaces where the city's spirit is at its most vibrant.
And it's through these young hearts, Seoul's true colors unfold. They're the ones pushing boundaries, innovatively reshaping the city's cultural landscape.
Undoubtedly, Andrew. But their stories warrant deeper exploration, to understand how they embody the mix of traditions and global trends.
Chloe, you mentioned earlier the tremendous impact of K-pop culture and how it was intertwining with Seoul's lifestyle and fashion trends, especially in these hangout zones. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Sure, Andrew. The influence of K-pop in Seoul is honestly colossal. If you take a walk through any of these youth hangouts, especially places like Hongdae or Gangnam, you will see K-pop everywhere. In the flashy signs of the dance studios, in the music blasting out from the headphones of teenagers on the streets, and perhaps most evidently, in what they wear.
How do you mean in what they wear? Like merchandising?
That's part of it, certainly. But what I mean is larger than that. K-pop idols have become style icons for the youth here. If a pop star wears a certain brand or a specific style of clothing, you will see it ripple through the city, reflecting in the local fashion trends. But it's not merely imitation, there's a sense of individuality too. Each person finds ways to weave these styles into their own unique expression.
That's fascinating. The spread of influence from music culture to personal expression, it's like an ever-flowing current, continually fostering innovation and pushing boundaries. How have you seen this mirrored in dance and other performing arts?
Indeed, much like fashion, dance movements and performance styles popularized by K-pop are echoed across Seoul's performing arts landscape. Be it in street performances or amateur stage shows, you'll see elements of K-pop choreography blending with traditional Korean dance, contemporary styles, or even hip-hop. The influence is palpable. Yet again, what I admire the most is how these individuals make it their own, adding their unique twists. In essence, it is this fluid integration and reinterpretation of K-pop influences that makes Seoul's youth hangouts so captivating. You'll find here a canvas where global trends, traditional elements, and individualistic styles collide, creating a radiant splash of cultural dynamism.
Throughout our journey, we've been so blessed to chat with diverse residents of Seoul. Their stories bring this magnificent city to life, capturing its spirit and dynamism. Can you share one, Chloe?
Absolutely, Andrew. One story that resonated with me came from an old lady we met at a tea house. She spoke of her childhood years with such nostalgia, a time when the city was not as advanced as it is today. She reminisced about how the buildings weren't as tall and imposed as they are now, how the markets were not as crowded.
Interesting. It's easy to forget that behind the hustle and the sheen of a modern city like Seoul, there's an entirely different era which the older generation belonged to.
Absolutely. Beyond the bustling cities, the tall skyscrapers, and vibrant kagdans, there were peaceful arenas, small local markets brimming with fresh aromas, and intimate eateries serving meals as close to home-cooked as it can get.
Listening to her, I was teleported to that era. The scent of freshly ground coffee, the taste of traditional kimchi, the feel of earth beneath my feet, all mixed in a perfect blend.
The most enthralling part of her story was the spirit of the people, how they kept going despite the odds. She talked about her own journey, from being a meek housewife to becoming an entrepreneur. She spoke about how the city evolved with her, and how she grew along with Seoul.
It must have been an incredible experience to witness such profound changes over the years.
Definitely, but she wore her journey as a badge of honor. As she said, Seoul is a river. It has its high tides and low ebbs, but it never stops rising. This, for me, defines the spirit of the city and its people. Don't you agree, Andrew?
Undoubtedly. I guess her story is just one of many that are waiting to be discovered. They remind us that our personal growth is intertwined with the evolution of our surroundings. These hidden stories are the lifelines that shape a city, and in turn, are shaped by it.
That poignant quote, "Seoul is a river. It has its high tides and low ebbs, but it never stops rising," pretty much encapsulates the energy of Seoul. From her words, it's almost poetic to see how Seoul, just like a river, has had its own share of rises and falls, but the city marches on graciously. Don't you think so, Andrew?
It definitely does. The city's evolution is a living testament to its people's will and determination, showing that no matter how drastic the changes may be, Seoul continues to rise, create, and innovate. Do you see any similarities with the people we have met during our tour, Chloe?
Yes. Even the street artists or the youth we met in the hangouts, they all seem to embrace the transformation, while preserving aspects of traditional heritage. Their ambitions and dreams were coexistent with a pride towards their cultural legacy, a balance which was simply beautiful to observe.
Right. Change is the only constant. And while change can be daunting, it's the stories of the people, their perseverance and adaptability, that give us the real essence of any city. Our explorations have certainly made us realize the invincible spirit of Seoul, haven't they, Chloe?
Indeed, Andrew. May it be the bustling markets or the energetic youth hangouts, the story of Seoul lies in these countless narratives, the heartbeats of the people who call it home. And the beauty of it is, no matter how many times we hear these stories, they never lose their charm or significance.
A city with a story at every turn, Seoul certainly is an enigmatic blend of heritage and modernity. I guess that's what has made our journey here in Seoul so fascinating. Every corner hides a treasure, waiting to be unlocked.